in Ocala, Florida, home of
Rob's a cat guy.
yeah. Well, hey, cats
I
kill
mean, look,
rats and mice.
it's you and cats. I
Well,
get it.
hey, dogs and cats living together. Hey, listen, man, everybody out there, tomorrow, happy birthday, America. We got a great show today. Coach Matt Dean in Memphis. John Hartwell, AD at ULM, pops in briefly because he has an 8:30 meeting
I'm
with the
sweating.
president. We got Will Vanderfort over in Clemson,
This
South
is
Carolina.
sweat.
Well, you're sweating, man. That it is hot down there.
Well, the dog got out.
There you go. Nothing like chasing a dog in the morning.
Thanks to the neighbors who everyone knows who the dog is. They don't know who I am, but they know who to call.
Yeah, they know when Sammy is out.
I'm gonna have a party for the saviors of Sammy the dog.
Hey, you gotta love them, and the people that text you and say, "Hey, I think we got your dog."
I love those people.
I do too.
Gary
Harris.
Thank you, Woodlands neighborhood in Ocala, Florida. You guys rock.
Yeah, and that's the home of Jake Slaughter, the All-American center at Florida, who's an all-around.
We're gonna get him on. He's on. His family, as I told you, associated with soccer. So.
Yeah, well, let's get him on. We've also got Gary Harris checking in from Tuscaloosa, and we are trying to do this. We're going to give you, I love it, Brendan, the Power Hour 60 of the SEC. Hour of Power. The Hour of Power. Just put your hand on that TV set right there. Send $9.95 a month forever, and I'll bless you. That's right. Hey, look, take a picture with your cellular phone of that QR code. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Growing, a lot of growth on this show. Thank you more than you know for sharing the show. Executive producer Brendan Martin works harder than a one-legged man in a kick fight. And
not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, there's not. And we walked Randy Campbell through an IT issue. It's like getting that guy to land the plane on the naked gun. Hey, thanks for watching. A lot of you at the beach, at the river, at the lakes. Yeah.
Naked gun.
The naked gun. The naked gun. Hey.
Sound like Buddy Martin.
Yeah. Naked. Naked. Let's get Coach Matt Dean started in here. John Hartwell, I know you got about 15 minutes. You've got a meeting with Dean Wormer at 8:30, and no more fun of any kind, man.
You're in trouble.
Yeah, I know. It's always. I used to go to the president's office at Auburn to visit. It was fun because I knew him, and so it was fun. But I was never on the dean's list. I was always on that other list. John, we had a cool discussion. It's been wild all week. NIL portal, it ain't going anywhere. It's a distraction. Focusing on football. Let's talk about what's going on with conference expansion. I know Texas State looks like they're going to go to the Pac-12. What's the Sun Belt going to do? Because Sun Belt's pretty damn strong. It's located in the footprint of the SEC and a lot of the ACC. So give us your thoughts on what's happening, and let's talk blocking and tackling and college football as much as possible.
Yeah, I mean, obviously Texas State departing to go to the what will become on July 1, 26. I guess the Pac 8.5 is what you will call it, since it's got Gonzaga in there with no football. So we're at 13 teams right now. Obviously, have had some conversations this week, both the ADs group and the CEOs group, the presidents and chancellors group, and some interesting dynamics. There's no slam dunk, if you will, right now. And, one of the options is to, hey, hold tight for a year. Do we stay at 13 for a year, which eliminates divisions in football? That creates some challenges. Obviously, we're talking about for the 26-27 academic year. But there's a lot of opinions in the room, and we'll just see how it goes. And it's a crazy thing. I was looking at my computer this morning, and obviously not talking about names or situations, but this whole NIL go now. So anybody who's a college administrator, this NIL go is what basically the group, the Deloitte group, who is evaluating NIL deals that do not flow through the university, that basically, would either prior to July 1st would go through a collective, or they would be direct one-on-one deals between a student athlete and a company. And literally, I got one this morning. Again, I hadn't opened it up yet, but said a third-party NIL deal from a student athlete at your institution could not be cleared. Student athlete has been notified that the deal has not been cleared, and basically, they've got to resubmit paperwork. They can't move forward with it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this whole process weighs out, and what the hiccups are early in the process. Because again, ultimately, you click on the information, and you've got three options. You can revise the deal and resubmit, cancel the deal, or appeal to neutral arbitration. So it's, and here we are in day 3 of this. And I promise you, ULM has a small fraction of the number of these deals that are trying to be processed as compared to some Power 4 schools, for sure.
Yeah. Matt Dean, there you go. Remember the clearinghouse? Remember how long it took? Guys were out there. It was like being in purgatory, wasn't it?
Good morning, guys. And John, it's interesting, the transparency, or maybe the lack thereof. If I'm an administrator of P4 or in your situation, and I get one of these that cross my email wires, I mean, that's a whole nother ball of wax in terms of how you manage that, right? In terms of your student athletes. I think I'm coming. I think I was approved for X, and now I get an email, and I have to make what kind of time turnaround do those things happen if I resubmit my paperwork. I can't imagine some of the bigger schools right now in terms of what they're seeing with all the money they're dealing with, John. So I just don't see how this is going to work well. I don't, man. I really don't.
Well, it's as annoying as Chester on Gunsmoke and that damn leg of his. I mean, that was. I was watching Gunsmoke last night. John, who wins billable hours for attorneys and CPAs? Look, got a lot of friends that are attorneys, lots that are CPAs in my family, but they move at glacial speed, and this stuff's got to be done quickly. John, are you worried about guys sitting out with a pout face, not playing because their deal hadn't been cleared? Holy shnikes. I think that's coming.
I mean, it may happen, but here's the thing is, this does, it doesn't, ease the situation, but the university's kind of been taken out of it. I mean,
right.
This is a third party group who is making these evaluations, and who knows what happens with it. But again, as you see college athletic departments, and you read about it every day, right sizing, trying to make sure they can afford what they're doing. This is just another component of it that now you've got to deal with. And oh, by the way, too, and we don't have that cost yet, but this NIL Go, what Deloitte is doing, they're not doing it out of the goodness of their heart.
No, exactly.
There's going to be a charge back to the institutions, and we don't have what that number is yet. So that's a whole nother component of it.
John, I wanted to throw in, we had Urban Meyer on yesterday. We started our podcast that we do every year, Best Fridays in Football. Urban comes on about 75% of the time. It's a good thing. But we were just talking a lot.
I love
about
Brendan.
75% of the time.
About 75%.
Okay, so I'll take him 50% of the time. But he was just talking about the situation that we're in right now. That and he basically came out, and we played this bite yesterday, that this is not sustainable. Like, this is NIL is going to run out of money. It's not sustainable. Although we're seeing a great product on the field, and the ratings and all that, matter from last year, and then obviously excited about this year. But he's made the point that this is just going to whittle us down to nothing. We're gonna end up in some super conference, and everything else is going to be AAA ball. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, here's what concerns me about it is, in situations where you ease into it, it's easier going forward. But, when you read, and this is a pretty consistent, message from the SEC and the Big Ten schools, hey, we're spending 50, 60, $70 million a year on NIL. That cat's out of the bag. How do you put that cat back in the bag? And, but I think you're right. I think there's a portion of it that is not sustainable in terms of the dollar amounts, and maybe because it's still fairly new and what's coming through the university revenue share wise gives a little more flexibility. But at the end of the day, there is not endless bank in terms of people investing in college athletics. And if there are, those are a limited few schools. So it's going to be interesting to see how this thing all plays out. I mean, it's not going to play out totally over the next 12 months, but I would say, fast forward to July 3rd, 2028, what does this whole thing look like? And what, the impact on conferences, the impact on, number of sports people are participating in, all of those things. I do know one thing for sure. I wouldn't bet my home mortgage today that it looks the same 3 years from now that it looks like today.
Yeah. What I think is going to happen is it used to be in certain businesses, you could get 7 or 8 points, selling products. Now you're lucky to get 1.5. Okay. The market and transparency makes all that happen. Return on investment. If you have let's say you're a financial, advisor, you have a fund, a stock, a mutual fund, and you consistently just lose tons of money. People they will not continue to put money in it. They're looking at that ROI. They're looking at the return on investment. It's just a direct correlation. Your team's throwing up 7-5, 8-4. They're going, I'm not paying that. I mean, I'm not going to continue to pay. That's why I'm with Urban Meyer. It is unsustainable, but I like college football and college athletics good all over the country because it's great for the morale. It's what makes America different from every other country in the world is our college sports. And I don't want them to look like pro sports. Matt, you're a coach.
So quickly, I got to ask John a question because like any rule, as coaches or administrators, we figure out how to, circumvent a little bit. So like if I'm a capologist here, John, let's say, and I'm running a P4 and I got 21 million, whatever the number is, and I got the outside money that has to be approved by Deloitte, correct?
Yeah.
So let's say I have a big deal and you're quarterback. Am I going to run maybe half of that through the institution that they can't say no on, and the other half goes to a third-party vendor, and all of a sudden I tell the QB, well, I'm sorry, the other half didn't get approved. I'm just being, theoretical here. I mean, I think this is a mess because we got people committing to deals right now, and things change in recruiting. We go to the first signing date in December, so we're going to have a lot of people flip again because the money didn't work through or something didn't get approved, correct? So ultimately, the teams that succeed are going to figure this out in terms of their capology.
Yeah, that's a great point, and you're right. What you do under the rev share within the university, which is capped for this year at somewhere right around $20.5 million.
Yeah.
Though the allocations of those dollars are really untouchable, as opposed to the things that flow through an outside collective or directly from a company to an individual. Those are subject to this NIL go to the clearinghouse, if you will. And so you're right. If you've got that deal where a star player, whatever sport, let's say that's $1 million person, and they're getting 500,000 through the rev share from the university and 500,000 through the outside, but the outside amount gets denied, then all of a sudden that individual or his agent or handler or whatever you want to call it, it is miffed at that and goes shopping and finds another institution that says, well, hey, we've got some room under our salary cap. We'll do all $1 million, all $1 million through the university, and they can't dispute that. And you're going to have those types of situations, I think, coming down the pipe.
Okay.
Well, I think there's two lines of thought on these collectives too. Talking to a guy that runs one at an SEC school this week, and they got a lot of money. He said, we're not going to throw the money out there now, and they're going to lose. You're going to lose people right now, but in November and December, if you're winning, here's what everybody wants. They want to be Florida, because last year Florida was in the 60s in the recruiting rankings. Then they won 6 of their last 7. DJ Lagway got on a roll. And remember what happened? They finished 7th in the nation in recruiting and signed like 11 or 12 guys in the last 2 weeks, like 3 5-stars, including Dallas Wilson, who they pulled away a 5-star receiver commitment from Oregon. And he was an in-state kid who'd gone out there. So, John, I know you just got a few minutes before you go meet Dean Wormer. Have you thought about the money part? This is what people throw money figures around. 20.5, 21.5 million dollars is it's a big deal, whatever it is. And it looks like it's going to go up every year. Kind of close us out, and I know we're going to keep you on time. Close us out what you think athletic directors and administrators are thinking privately, without naming anybody, about this whole mess.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this unequivocally, because all of my peers that I talk to, which is quite a few, and talking to a couple of national sports writers this week who are calling and obviously wanting to know what's happening in the Sun Belt. But, and this has always been the case to some extent. Sitting in the chair of the athletic director is not for the faint of heart. Every day is a grind, and I promise you that.
No, it's not.
That volume on that deal has been turned up significantly, really over the last 6 months, but it continues to evolve. And here's my hope, and I think most of my peers feel this way too. Hey, can we keep it between the lines? Do we have total control of it right now? Hell no. I mean, I don't know that anybody does. But can we keep it between the lines for the young men and women who are playing collegiate sports to keep? And I won't even call it the purity of it, because with the dollars in it, I can't say it's pure anymore. But for the love of the game, and obviously for the institutions and the fans and all of that, I mean, I think that's what's got to be our why going forward in terms of preserving the core, at least if we can, of college athletics.
I'm with you, and I think that we love the game, and we also want these kids to love the school like we do. That's what draws fans in. And John, man, you've got a huge role in this, because you do talk to people around the country. So, I mean, we're going to figure it out, because this isn't the first crisis we've had in college athletics. It's just not.
I think it's a big one in a sense of, because it's not a crisis, because at the sanctity of the game is still in play. The quality of the product is still good. Money is still there. Fans are still there. We're looking down the road. And I keep saying the same thing. What happens to big, I've worked for big entities my whole life, and, they fail. It happens. I've seen them fail. Work for Fox Sports South, Fox Sports in general. I mean, I've been through these big transitions of things and people think, well, I could never see that happen. Is there a place where there's some sort of like schools opting out and saying, I just can't afford this anymore? I'm like, it just seems like it's going to fracture, when the money runs out. And then what? We got subset leagues and all this stuff because they can't afford to do, like, I don't know. I mean, it just, we're always like, the NCAA is the all knowing, all being, all things, but does that finally get broken down? Is that a monopoly of some sort? Like, I'm trying to apply business sense here.
Yeah. I'll say this in closing, guys, that, do we have challenges? Yeah. Have we always had challenges in this industry? Without question. I still wouldn't trade it for the world. And ultimately, and this is timely as well, I mean, we live in the greatest country in the world. Has our country had challenges? Yeah, but we persevered through it. We stayed the course, and very blessed to work in this industry, blessed to live in this country, blessed to be able to get to visit with you guys each week. And I just hope everybody has a happy and safe 4th of July.
Hey, man, you're right. And you can't have a new reality with an old mentality. We'll figure it out. Happy 4th of July,
He's
John.
got them all, doesn't he, folks?
Happy 4th,
He's full
John.
of them all
Take
today.
care, guys.
Thanks. Happy 4th of July.
All right.
Every day.
Hey.
Let's bring him. Will's been patient. Let's bring him.
Here we come. Will Vandervoort, the Clemson insider in Clemson, South Carolina. Had you on a few weeks ago. That was a lot of fun. Talking just in with ULM AD John Hartwell about all the expansion, what's going on in Texas State, going to the Pac 8.5. Let's get into some blocking and tackling in college football. Matt's son is on the staff at Oregon in his 4th year with Dan Lanning. So we're an SEC show, but again, what happens here has reverberations, and what happens in the ACC and the Pac, in the Big Ten, 8.5. It all affects each other. So it's important we bring in outside voices. Let's talk the ACC. I'm sitting here looking at Phil Steele's. Let me get my magnifying glass out here. It is so small, the print. But you look at the ACC. Clemson, SMU, Miami, Georgia Tech, Florida State, Louisville. Okay, and then North Carolina at number 7.
Yeah.
Bill Belichick is going to focus on football. I mean, the guy, he's got a pretty good track record. Those are pretty damn good teams. I watch a lot of ACC Network. Okay, authentic ACC. I watch it.
Hold on. One person watches the ACC Network?
ACC Network. It's better than the people that never
There's
watch
one.
the Pac-12 Network, which may have been the worst thing I've ever seen.
Well, maybe there's only one. You're the only one that watches the ACC Network.
Well, yeah. Well, but they got to do more. But you're right. That Pac-12 showed the Cal-Stanford game from 1982 every hour of every day. But that's some pretty good teams in the ACC. But Clemson is an island unto itself. How big is the buildup for this game coming up with LSU to start the season?
Oh, it's really big. First of all, thanks for having me. I always like coming on here. Appreciate you guys. Yeah, it's a big game. I mean, come on. I mean, it's Clemson, LSU, and both are going to be top 10 teams. I think Clemson might be a top 5 team preseason, and so yeah, I think it's going to be huge. The buildup is big. I think over on the Clemson side, on the football side of campus, to them, they're just treating it like they have. I mean, let's be honest. They opened up last year against Georgia. They've opened up a couple years ago against Georgia. They've had Auburn. Clemson's had these big games a lot. So for the program itself, they're kind of go business as usual for them. But the fans are really excited about it because it's the first time LSU and Clemson have really played in a regular season game, and first time obviously LSU's coming to Clemson, and so there's a lot of hype for that. The original Death Valley talk. I know people want to say the best Death Valley or whatever, but as Clemson fans, I kind of put gasoline on that fire a lot. Clemson is the original Death Valley, and it's not even close by how many years it is. It's, it's almost 2 decades that Clemson was calling it that before even one LSU story came out and said it was somewhere around calling it Death Valley. The Death Valley thing I love to make sure people understand out there is LSU's it's like an urban legend. It's like they really can't pinpoint a date of when they started calling it Death Valley. They can't pinpoint one. Where Clemson is dated 1945. Lone McMillan, Presbyterian head coach, he called it Death Valley, and that's when it started. And so Clemson has an exact date, and when they call it that, LSU is sort of an urban legend. And the earliest account of that urban legend was 1959 when Billy Cannon took the punt return 68 yards to beat Ole Miss 10-7 in that great game that led to his Heisman Trophy season. So, but that's the earliest account of when they can say maybe it was started calling Death Valley. I talked to the late Paul Dietzel back about 10 years ago. So before they played LSU in the Chick-fil-A Bowl back in 2012 about this story. And he said that he never heard it called Death Valley once when he was the head coach there. He said, we called it Tiger Stadium, and that's what it was. And he said that's all he ever knew it to be. And he said he didn't really start hearing it be people calling it that till almost 1990s before he actually ever heard it called Death Valley down in Baton Rouge. So, I like to put flames on it and just keep the gasoline going and making those flames higher and higher. And the Clemson people get really worked up about it. And so, as they should, I think they feel disrespected about it. And I think I'm going to tell you this, it's going to be the loudest stadium LSU's ever been in because they're going to let LSU know why Clemson is called Death Valley, and they're going to make sure the LSU people hear it and the LSU players hear it. So I can guarantee you that it is going to be an extremely loud stadium that night in Clemson.
If we take a road trip up to Clemson, how much would we have to pay to run down the hill? How much do people pay to do with the team? What does that cost? Half a million?
Nobody runs with the team that pays.
Boosters don't ever pay like.
No, that's why there was and I wrote a column about it because when the Savannah Bananas host came down there and played this past, I guess it was May or whatever, the Savannah Bananas ran down the hill and they became the first anybody other than the team to run down the hill for an official with 80,000 people in the stadium. And so, it was some Clemson people weren't happy about that. I wrote a column about it. Again, I like to throw gasoline on things. That's my job. So I wrote a column about it, and it was obviously some people, liked what I wrote. Some people didn't. That's it. It is what it is. And it was a. But as far as regular people do it, no. The only like every once in a while, like an Olympic athlete has that won a gold medal got to run down the hill with the team. I know a golfer, one who won the U.S. Open, got to do it, and that's it. Other than, just it's a sacred thing. They don't let just anybody run down the hill in Death Valley, and so yeah. And by the way, and so people understand that that's 110-foot drop hill. So that's another reason why they don't let just anybody run down that stadium, because there's if somebody falls and gets hurt, then you can imagine the ramifications for it. So like I said, they're running truly into a valley, but it's a sacred thing, and they just don't let anybody do it.
No, and I know it is, and I've got a friend that's asked me. He said, "Do you think if I wrote a $500,000 check to Tennessee, they'd let my family and me run through the Power T?" I said, I bet they would.
Probably now, because they need the revenue, right? I think a story came out yesterday. My colleague John Blau with the Charles Post-Courier, he wrote a story that Clemson is now seriously looking into putting patches on its uniform, on its jersey, where this is to help with the revenue, and to bring some money in. So you'll definitely see that start. So yeah, there's some things that are going to happen. So you're right. Maybe if somebody says, "Hey, I'll give you $1 million if you let me run down the hill," I think Clemson will definitely, "Hey, Dabo, move to the side."
Matt Dean, jump in this conversation, and this great stuff. Will Vandervoort, folks, the Clemson insider. Also, he's Steeler. Will absolutely loves his Pittsburgh Steelers. Matt,
hey, Will, great to be on with you. A couple thoughts. I had a chance. I've been to 2 Clemson home football games back in the early 90s. I had a neighbor that was on one of their national championship teams, I think with Coach Ford. He was a walk-on, and we went to there and watched them just take out Florida State. That's when Florida State was pretty good back then. I think Bobby Bowden obviously was the coach. But my son was on the staff at A&M. We came there about 7 or 8 years ago, and the one thing I remember, we're wearing our Texas A&M stuff, and your fans, I've been to a lot of venues, Will. I thought your fans were the nicest fans I've ever been around after an ass whooping. Sorry for my language, Rob. But I just thought they were great. They'd be like, "Hey, I thought you guys really played well today. Safe travel." I swear to you, I can give you some stories about going to LSU night games, a lot different. But I will tell you this. Going into this season, I think you have, in my opinion, the best returning quarterback in the country. I think there's a chance he could be a top 3, top 5 pick, maybe number 1 overall. And when you have that position secure like you guys do, I think you guys got a great chance to make a serious run.
Yeah. So, the fans, as far as it goes, I hear a lot of people talk about the Clemson fans that way. I actually was, when I worked with Clemson with their athletic department this is about 10, 15 years ago. And we went to Miami. And me and my photographer are getting out, and when you work with the team, you have to wear the team attire, and also I'm like wearing the Clemson, had to wear the Clemson stuff and all that. So the guy comes over, he thought I was just a regular fan, and he's like, "Well, hey guys, if you want to, man, come on over and tailgate with us and blah blah blah." And I was like, "Well, we appreciate it, but I gotta go to work." And I try to explain to him, and he says, "Oh," and then he tells me this great story about how the same thing you just did. how he wanted to return the favor because how nice Clemson people were to him when Miami came up there that time before. And he wanted to make sure all the Clemson people were treated as kindly as he was treated. And so I hear that a lot with a lot of fans that come to Clemson. And I'm sure, they'll treat the LSU people the same way. Clemson's very proudful of that. The fan base is. But I will also tell you this. There are a few idiots, just like any fan base has, that are just going to be obnoxious. And then also remember this. This will be the first time beer is going to be sold in Memorial Stadium for a Clemson football game.
Oh boy!
And you're bringing in the Cajuns with the Baptists. I don't know what's going to happen. So it's going to be interesting to see what that's going to be like. But let's be honest, it's not like people that sneak in their little South Carolina. You had those little liquor bottles, and so people just sneak. They've been sneaking those in for years, sticking them down in their boots. The young ladies will stick them down in their boots and stuff like that and hide them for their husbands or boyfriends and stuff like that. So they've been drinking in the stadium forever. So this wouldn't be the first time. But anyway, as far as this year's team goes, it does start with Cade Klubnik. And I think, he's progressed the way this is how it's supposed to be in college, right? You come in as a very highly touted freshman, but you got to grow. You got to experience things. And that's what Cade has done. He's come from being a guy who wasn't the most polished passer or quarterback when he came in, but he's progressed throughout his career. And last year you saw him take a major step into where he can be. And now he's got to another level. And he reminds me of, to be honest with you, who he reminds me of is Bo Nix. I just think the longer Bo Nix played, he got better and better. And Cade, I think, is the same way. I just see a lot of similarities in both of them. And I think Cade I think this year he's going to take another step. And they're really excited about see what he can do in that LSU game. Is a prime game for him to show the country if he truly is one of the best players in the country.
Yeah, one of my friends, good friend Dave Cody's a longtime sports anchor, Channel 7 in Austin. So he got to cover Cade, and did a lot of his high school games. And really, I'm with you. He's a hell of a player. And last year he had a really good year. And he's got that right side, the right guard and the right tackle for Clemson. I think Blake Miller has 42 starts. And then this guy next to him has 41. So I want to bring in Gary Harris from Tuscaloosa. I see Gary visiting and trying to work his way in here on the camera from Tuscaloosa into this conversation. And Will, we won't keep you long. I told you I'd keep you about 16 minutes.
But I got time. Whatever, how long you want to keep me.
Yeah, but Gary come back in. We lost him. He'll be back. But I think what is really big to me is Gary. Here you are. Gary Harris is the sports director, WVUA Channel 23 in Tuscaloosa. Also has a great radio show right after mine, 9 to 11 a.m. on Tide 100.9, Monday through Friday. Also hosts Tider Insider with Rodney Orr of Tider Insider. Great show Tuesday night. So Will Vandervoort in Clemson, the Clemson Insider, Gary Harris in Tuscaloosa. And what's cool is the 4 greatest coaches in Clemson history all came from where? Alabama. It's the wildest story. I mean, that needs to be they did have several national championship games, but Gary, we're talking college football.
And Hootie Ingram also coached there. So he did. I think Hootie was the one that brought the deal running down the hill. Am I right? Well,
no. So the story behind the hill started. Coach Howard actually started it back in when he built the stadium in 1942.
Okay, well, I knew the Rock. I didn't know that. I thought so Hootie was the first to have him run down the hill. I was wrong there.
Yeah, the story is that Howard so Clemson used to dress at Old Fight Fieldhouse, which is right up the road from Memorial Stadium. And so he would tell them, they would walk down Williamson Road there, and he just, instead of going all the way around the stadium, coming in on the west side of the stadium, which is where the present day locker room and all that is, Howard would say, boys, just cut through the east side right there, go through that side of the fence right there. And they started doing it. So they just did that because they did it for practice. And then on game days, they would just go down there for their warm-ups. Mm-hmm. And so then the fans kind of caught on to it. And so the fans, sort of like a tiger walk would be, right? They started doing it, and then they would, and it started a little fanfare, but it didn't really kick off like the way it is now. until Red Parker did it back in 1973. So Ingram came in, and Bill McClellan, the old AD at Clemson, when they built the West End Zone stands and they built those lockers over there, he basically told Hootie Ingram, like, I've just built these brand new lockers. I could never get Coach Howard to use them. We're going to use them. We spent a lot of money on them. We're not doing the damn heel no more. Excuse my language. We're not using the heel no more. So stop using the heel. So Hootie didn't let him do it until his last game in 1972, where he allowed the seniors, talked him into letting them come up there and run down the hill. Okay. And so that was sort of similar. And then in 73, when Red Parker got the job and took over, Red Parker, they opened up against the Citadel, and he did it. He came out of the West End Zone and everything, and he said the atmosphere was stale. And he's like, it was just kind of stale. So he went to Bill McClellan and said, hey, Coach, I want us to run down the hill because I think it'll be a great atmosphere. They played Texas A&M that next home game a few weeks later. And he's like, I think it'd be a great atmosphere. It would really get the crowd into the game and all this stuff, you know. And Coach McClellan said no, just flat out said no. And so Bill was kind of mad. I mean, Coach Parker was kind of mad about it. So he kind of went back to his locker room and he said, you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. So we got the buses here. I got 10, 15 minutes in between the time I talk to the team and the game starts. I'm going to do it anyway. And so he did it. They do it just like they do now. And they ran down the hill. The craze went crazy. Obviously, it's a great recruiting tool. And they ended up losing the game, but the atmosphere was a tight game, and the atmosphere was great the whole game. And Coach Parker says at the end of the game, Bill McClellan comes up to him, and he says, didn't I tell you not to run down that doggone hill? And he says, yeah, I'm sorry, Coach. He says, you know, the next time you do something like that and you go against me, I'm going to fire you on the spot. He says, I'm sorry, Coach. I'm sorry. Then he hits him on the back, says, good job. that was it. And they've been doing it ever since.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Today's redneck word of the day is mayonnaise. Mayonnaise, a lot of stuff that I did not know about Clemson, I am hearing right now because, Gary, you think about the traditions in Tuscaloosa. It is, 18 national championships. You could probably claim 27. It's not an embarrassment of riches because you ought to be damn proud of it. But for the longest time, the big games were played in Birmingham. In 99, when Tennessee came, to play in Bryant-Denny, that changed. But you get so used to winning, you can get complacent. But I think the atmosphere at Alabama has gotten a lot rowdier, a lot louder. What specifically changed that? You talk about Clemson.
Rob, listen, I'm going to push back on that a little bit. I've heard that, and I started covering Alabama in my first TV job in Anniston back in Channel 40 in 1982. And the big games then were played in Birmingham. They were played in Birmingham. Yeah. It was Legion Field, college football capital of the South. And the atmosphere at Legion Field was unbelievable. And Tuscaloosa was not quite as, it was only 60,000 seats at the time. They didn't play nearly as many big games there. So, Legion Field was kind of the place for big football games in the state of Alabama. And so, but once they made the decision, times dictated that you're going to move them all to Tuscaloosa, I think it's always been an electric atmosphere there. I mean, I've been to just about every, I've been to just about 2 or 3 stadiums that I hadn't been to in the SEC. I've been to the rest of them. And I mean, when you play big games at home in this conference or in the ACC or the Big 12 or the Big 10, of them, the atmosphere is going to be electric. I just don't subscribe to that. Well, all of a sudden Alabama's, now maybe there's some thought process that for some games, because Alabama, especially, with Bryant and later with Saban, even with Stallings to some degree, when you're that dominant and winning at that clip, and there are going to be some games where people aren't going to be as excited. When you're a 50-point favorite, some schools don't get to be 50-point favorites very often. Maybe the atmosphere is not going to be, but for big games in Tuscaloosa, at whether it's LSU or it's Auburn or it's Tennessee or Georgia or whoever, it's no different to me than it is in College Station or Knoxville or Baton Rouge or anywhere else. I mean, big games are big games, and fan bases in the SEC love big football games. So, so I don't know. I've never thought the atmosphere, even when I was my first time in Tuscaloosa in the mid-'80s when I was shooting the Ray Perkins show, Penn State came down to Tuscaloosa in '86, which
Yeah.
was a change from, normally Alabama played them over in Birmingham for the most part, and even though Penn State won that game, DJ Joser had a big game. That atmosphere that day was unbelievable.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I think that
That's a good point.
I think with Alabama, I think a lot of times people are just trying to look for things to try to, it's like Coleman Coliseum, the basketball Coliseum. Most people that criticize it have never even been there for a game. It's a much better arena and functional arena. Is it the best in the SEC? No, but it's much better than it's given credit for. So, but yeah, I think the atmosphere right now for that Georgia game last year was unbelievable. And so many of these recruits that Alabama's been loading up with in this last, 10-day, 2-week period, were at that game, have referenced that game, what that was like to be there at that game. And I was there, and it was unbelievable. And I've never been to a game at Clemson. I will say that. I'd like to get up there and see a game. I've been to games with Alabama playing Clemson, but they were either in the semifinals or national championship games.
Yeah. Well, and I think I base that just from Alabama friends of mine, like in Memphis, that are season ticket holders. They're saying, and one of my friends said this, and I think he's just being lazy. But he said, I'm just tired of going down there and we're beating everybody, their brains in. I'm going, I don't think I've ever complained about winning. I mean, I'm not really going to see the other team that you're playing. I'm going to see my school. Matt, jump into this conversation. This is two really smart guys that know these programs like very few, if anybody else.
Well, I think we're quite lucky in the scheduling this year with Will on and ACC. I mean, we got two great games early on. Obviously, we talked about Clemson and LSU, but I am still intrigued. I think Alabama's going to win, Gary, but I am still intrigued about the Florida State matchup, week 1 for the Tide. I think, with the new quarterback, even though I've heard things have gone really well for Ty Simpson, if that's the man. I mean, I think it's going to be for Florida State after the year they had, after the whole situation where they didn't get in the playoff and then just got embarrassed in the bowl game. I think it's one of the biggest games in Mike Norvell's tenure at Florida State, even if it's just a moral victory, Gary. I mean, I'm just telling you, they have to come out and play good football in front of their fan base. And I think another thing is, I think if, Will, you had mentioned this in the earlier segment, if Cade does well and you guys win that game, I think it sets him up for a potential Heisman.
I do. It's crazy to think early in the season that you could be in that position. But, yeah, if he plays well and Clemson comes out of there with a victory, that'll carry some weight throughout the season because, I mean, Clemson's it's not a difficult schedule, but there's a couple bumps in the road that they could possibly land on. So they got to be careful. But I think it's a team that, the ceiling is 12-0. I think the floor at worst is 10-2. So I think they got an opportunity to, if they could win that LSU game, to run the table possibly and be right there where they want to be at the end of the year. And if that happens, now I won't ever say a Clemson player is going to win the Heisman Trophy until it actually happens, because for some reason it just doesn't happen. Like, I thought Deshaun Watson should have won it one of those 2 years when he was playing, and that didn't happen. And then I definitely thought Trevor Lawrence should have won it the year. COVID is the reason why Trevor Lawrence didn't win he got punished because he got COVID. And so he didn't play in the Notre Dame game. And that he would have destroyed Notre Dame if he played in that game, because he ended up destroying them in the ACC championship game later on that year. And so there's no doubt in my mind, if he doesn't get COVID, he wins the Heisman. But until I see it, I won't believe it. So for a Clemson person winning a Heisman Trophy, but I think the team obviously can play off a win over LSU and carry itself the rest of the year. Dabo knows how to do it. He knows how to carry a team after big wins like that. He's had undefeated teams. He's played and won national championships. And so those things all bode well for Clemson if they're able to get that first win against LSU.
Let me throw this one at you, Gary. You're talking about the Heisman. For the longest time, Alabama didn't have anybody. Then a guy from Flint, Michigan, Mark Ingram, wins it. And you broke the code. I mean, it's kind of like
used to say the same thing. We'll say it's just, you didn't think it was ever going to happen. And of course, Coach Bryant, I think, kind of prided himself on that almost. It was like
He
a badge
did.
of honor. Yeah,
Dabo does
we
too.
play team ball, and he would play it. Robbie was playing sometimes 6 or 7 quarterbacks in a game. And but I want to piggyback on what Matt said about that Alabama opener. You got LSU and Clemson, you got Alabama and Florida State. And I agree. I think that it's I think a lot of Alabama fans are kind of discounting it. I think there are a number of reasons why that's going to be a tough game. Number one, there's still a lot of venom from Florida State people toward Alabama over the playoff a couple of years ago. Alabama didn't control that, but they got in. Florida State didn't, and we know how Florida State people reacted to that. And also the fact that they were 2-10 last year, a miserable season. Started against Georgia in the Orange Bowl the year before, and it just carried right over. Thomas Castellanos comes in from Boston College, and he's chirping. But you know what? I'm hearing a lot about it. Well, that's going to motivate Alabama's defense. What's going to motivate, Florida State's offense to have their quarterbacks back? And they're bringing Gus Malzahn, who, I don't know that there's a bigger Alabama hater on the planet, Rob, than Gus Malzahn. So he's going to have, and they're going to try to win their other games. I'm certainly not implying that it's a make or break game for them, but it's the first game of the year. They've got all off season. I think they're going to throw themselves into this game, much like it's a college football playoff game. Because if they have a good performance, as Matt was alluding to, even if they don't win it, and obviously if they were to pull the upset, I mean, it would be a game changer for them as far as their season is concerned. So I think Alabama has to be cautious. I think when you're open on the road, Doak Campbell's going to be rocking. It's going to be hot. Of course, both teams practice in the heat, but still, it's going to be I think it's a game that Alabama has to be ready to play. And as Matt also pointed out, Ty Simpson's going in there. Yeah, this is his 4th year. He's never started a game. I keep reading and seeing where people say, well, he started a game. He didn't start the South Florida game. That was the Buckner kid, the lacrosse player from Notre Dame that came in. Now, Ty came in and bailed Buckner out, but he's never started a game at Alabama. So, and as far as the Heisman stuff is concerned, Saban broke that seal, and, Alabama players have won 4 of them since 2009, but until that point had never won one. So I'm sure as good a program as Clemson has, as many marquee players as they have, come through that program eventually. It may be this year. Like you said, Clemson may be the guy that breaks through for them. I think he's probably, if he's not the leading candidate, he's in the top 3, that's for sure.
I'd like to say something real fast about the Florida State matchup. Here's the thing with that. The Florida State quarterback, Castellanos, has already messed that all up, though. Because he's like, I mean, when he came out a couple weeks ago and said that Nick Saban's not going to be there to save him, I'm like, dude, what are you doing?
Come on, man.
Those guys got nothing but 4- and 5-star guys over there. What are you doing? So all said and done, I think Alabama wins that game. I think they got a better roster than Florida State. I think they got better coaches than Florida State, and I think that'll show in the end. I think Alabama wins that game. It'll be tight for a while for what you said. The atmosphere will be great, and Florida State will be into it. But I think overall, Alabama eventually, their depth and their athleticism should take over, and the coaching definitely will. But trust me, because Mike Norvell is, he's not the greatest in-game coach. I think he's a great offensive coordinator and play caller, but he makes decisions in-game where I just scratch my head. I'm like, dude, what are you doing? So
I'll throw something interesting to you. You're talking about these. This is a true road game. Alabama will be at Doak S. Campbell Stadium, Bobby Bowden Field. Chief Osceola will come out on Renegade as the legendary voice of the Florida State Seminoles, Gene Deckerhoff, would say on the radio. Here comes Chief Osceola and this crowd of 80,000 on their feet as Renegade and Chief Osceola throw the spear at midfield, and it's football time in Tallahassee. It will be huge. But you know what? LSU started playing football in 1892. Do you know how many true road games, not neutral sites, but true road games LSU has won against a top 10 opponent outside of the SEC in their history?
I don't know.
Are you going to say 0?
1.
Are you kidding me?
And that was the Texas game in 2019.
Wow.
And Coach O was the coach there.
Joe Burrow had something to do with that, right?
And it was like 48-43 or something like that. And they put LSU in the steam bath for the locker room, and it pissed them off so bad. And they've still been waiting for that return trip to Tiger Stadium, which they have not been granted. But, this is what I love. I mean, Alabama, don't poke the bear. why would you say anything to fire Alabama up more?
Exactly.
Their hair's already on fire after last season.
The only thing I can figure is
he don't have much sense.
He's a transfer quarterback. He's athletic. He's a short kid. Yeah. And Diego Pavia popped off.
Yeah.
And Vanderbilt won the game. And then he popped off some more, and he's still popping off. A kid who has no business even playing college football.
Stop popping.
I mean, he's out of eligibility.
Right. That's right, Gary.
And he just basically in this new era just said, I refuse to leave college football. I'm going to play another year. And he is. But that's the only thing I can figure is Castellanos wants to wear that big chip on his shoulder and, come get you some.
There's one thing to do it, though, during the season where it's only a couple days. It's one thing to do it during the summer, and they got all summer.
I was shocked. Don't get me wrong. I was surprised. But I guess, if you're looking at it from an Alabama perspective and trying to see the potential dangers, pitfalls of the game, you say, well, I guess maybe it's going to fire up Florida State. I'm with you. They don't have the roster to match up with Alabama, but first game on the road, new quarterback, team that's going to, I think, throw everything into that game. I think there's just enough there for Alabama to be, to be cautious and be ready, but be ready to play the football game. Don't go down there and get ambushed.
Rob, I know you talked about LSU. They don't play that many road games, and the crazy thing is, back in the day when Bobby Bowden was coming through, Florida State was known how they would go to Michigan, they go to Texas, they go to Clemson and play the games. But a lot of people don't know this, where Bobby Bowden got that from. He got it from Coach Howard in Clemson, because a lot of people don't realize this. In the 50s and 60s, when Coach Howard was building the Clemson program like he did, he would go – Clemson only played during Coach Howard's career, which was over 30 years. He averaged only 3 home games a season over his career. Clemson played a majority of their games. They would go play at Alabama. They go play at Georgia Tech. They go play at Auburn. They go play at Tennessee. They always played these road games, and they would lose a lot of them. But at the same time, he knew he would get the money, and he was building the program, and he built Clemson into what it became in the 1970s and became that national program that it did. And Bobby Bowden Bobby Bowden admitted this. If you go back and read some of his books and stuff, he admitted he used Coach Howard's theme there to go play on the road anywhere. And then this is how I can build my program. And then later on, we'll get our home games when we do that.
I got to go, guys. But while we're on this Alabama-Clemson theme, and Rob, you brought it up at the top, it is amazing, really, when you think about Frank Howard, from Alabama, former Alabama player that kind of built the Clemson program, and who he coached there. Obviously, Charlie Pell, what he was able to do.
Yes,
and then Danny Ford, much like Dabo. Danny Ford took over, 31 years old at the time, and, wins a national championship. And then for all that Dabo's done, Dabo was here in Alabama working in the private sector, working in the development business. And Tommy Bowden, after Dabo coached at Alabama, gets him up there to Clemson as a position coach. The next thing you know, I remember that game that led it all to Clemson to Bowden's downfall. I was in Atlanta in 2008 when Clemson, we thought would have a national championship contender, and Alabama just went out there and dressed them. And then Dabo kind of out of nowhere, because I liked Dabo when he was here as an assistant. Great guy. I don't know that anybody saw this coming, what he was able to do. But it's amazing to have that many connections between two schools just because of the coaches.
Yeah, Tommy Bowden, as you mentioned, assistant coach at Alabama as well. And so was Jess Neely, who brought Frank Howard to Clemson. Was an assistant coach at Alabama. So you go all the way back to Coach Neely in 1931, and then that connection runs all the way to today, Clemson and Alabama. So
it's amazing. And then, of course, for so many years, it's kind of, like I say, some regular season meetings, but it's kind of a friendly, I think a lot of Alabama fans, pull for Danny Ford and all that kind of stuff. And then, you start playing for college football playoff semifinals and national championship games, and it kind of gets ratcheted up.
Just a little bit.
A little bit different. Hey, I got to go. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Gary, as always, man. Love
Gary. Take care.
We got about 5 minutes left here. And I saw, Winter Timber, all of our sponsors, Winter Timber Outdoors, Athens, Alabama, all over the Southeastern Conference. Look, in about a month, should be opening the doors on that 13,000 square foot store on University Drive in Auburn. All your hunting, fishing, and outdoor needs. Hey, the only thing Coach Dye used to say bigger than college football in the South is hunting and fishing. Throw in NASCAR, but then you throw in the trifecta weekend as you go deer hunting in the morning, college football game, in the day, and Sunday you head over to Talladega. It don't get much better than that in the South, and that's what we're all about. Also, great folks at Hewlett and Dunn Boot and Clothing Company. They're open today, taking off for the 4th of July, and Landers Ford, Memphis.com, Poplar in Houston, Levy, where Germantown and Collierville come together. Ginormous car lot. Ask for Brad Bellamy, the general manager. They will work harder than anyone you've ever dealt with to get you in a new car, truck, or SUV. Those 25 Expeditions are in. The Broncos are in. I got to get one for Miss Audrey. I'm going to get her a Sasquatch one. You know what my wife said? She goes, I want to get a new Bronco, but I'm going to get it that baby, that it's called Robin Egg Blue with the little pink stripes, so nobody, including you, Rob, would ever want to borrow it and take it out in the mud and get it all dirty. I'm like, that's a smart woman, Miss Audrey.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Will Vandervoort, the Clemson insider, Coach Matt Dean. We had John Hartwell on earlier. I love what our executive producer, Brendan Martin's doing, showing all the video. They call it the upstate, South Carolina. And this is a cool discussion because, Matt, like I said, you got a son at Oregon. You're wearing the colors today.
He is.
Well, there's a reason, guys. I never wear Oregon on this show. Let me explain my reason quickly. So, I work for Rhodes, so I wear Rhodes gear here all the time, Will. But my son is getting married next weekend, so we're going to Minnesota this weekend. His lovely bride-to-be is a sports TV anchor up in Eugene, Oregon, Rob, and she played Division I college volleyball at West Virginia. So we're repping the O today. Also looking forward to our new quarterback, Dante Moore. Remember the name, Dante Moore, Oregon University. He is a dark horse this year. I think he's a fine football player. So that's why I got my Oregon gear on today, Rob.
Congratulations, by the way.
Yeah, congratulations.
Thank you.
And his son was on Jimbo's staff for 4 years before that at Texas A&M. So fourth, it's hard to believe. I remember in 22, Matt was over in Atlanta at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Georgia 49, Oregon 3.
Woo.
Dan Lanning had been at Georgia the year before when they won the national championship. Now, look, I'm looking to get John Hartwell said Dave Crepia, I think is his name, former beat writer in Alabama, covering Auburn in Alabama. He's now a beat writer covering Oregon. So, we're SEC,
okay,
but we're gonna bring in the rest of the country so we can understand it. Because just a few minutes left here, just 30 seconds.
Okay.
Paul Feinbaum, SEC dominance. It's in trouble. I think it is. You just look at the numbers, the talent's everywhere. It makes football exciting. We're an SEC show, but we play everybody.
Yeah, I think we're back to where, like it was when Ohio State won the first national championship, and then you saw Alabama, then you saw Clemson, and you had a good mixture there. I'm talking about college football playoff national championship. And so now we're back, I think, there again, where we're not seeing, because after Clemson, in 2018, you had LSU and Alabama and, Georgia, and that SEC dominance that came back again. And now I think you're starting to see, I think it's a little more parity. I think the ACC is going to be much improved this year. I think Clemson is a legitimate candidate for a run. I think Miami is a legitimate candidate for a run with their roster. So then, and then, of course, I think obviously Ohio State and Penn State and Oregon over in the Big Ten are teams you got to deal with. So, yeah, I'm with them. But then again, at the same time, though, it's not like the SEC is going anywhere either. Yeah. So they're going to be right in the middle of it. Georgia's got Kirby Smart's got that program still in good position, and they're not, as long as he's there, Georgia's going to be in the mix every year. And then Texas, oh my goodness, that's the giant that's just growing and growing every day. And they're going to get bigger and bigger. So, the SEC is not going anywhere for a while.
Yeah, I agree. Matt Dean, everybody, executive producer, Brendan Martin, Gary Harris, John Hartwell, everybody. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We live in the greatest country in the history of the world. Happy 4th of July. It is Independence Day. We're the freest people in the world. Man, Mother Teresa said it best. We can't do everything, but we can all do something. Most often we see the face of Christ. Share the show. Give us a retweet. We'll help your brand as well. We'll be off tomorrow, 4th of July. Don't blow yourself. Be careful with those fireworks. We'll see you back here Monday morning. Watch this channel every chance you get. Thank you. Good night, John Boy.